The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 42nd floor penthouse overlooking Manhattan's skyline. Inside, Marcus Sterling stood motionless, his reflection ghost-like against the storm-darkened glass. At 38, he commanded a technology empire worth $12 billion, yet tonight he felt utterly hollow. "Mr. Sterling?" came a soft voice from behind him. He didn't turn around. He knew that voice, gentle, warm, with just a hint of a southern accent that somehow made his cold penthouse feel less like a mausoleum. Sofia Brown had been working as his housekeeper for only 3 weeks. But already she'd managed to do something his previous staff never could, make him notice the silence. "The investors are asking about the charity gala again," she said, stepping closer with a steaming mug of coffee. "They want to know if you'll be making the speech about supporting children's education." Marcus's jaw tightened. Children, always back to children. "Tell them I'll send a check. That's what they really want anyway." Sofia set the coffee on the glass table beside him, her movements careful and deliberate. "Sometimes people want more than money, Mr. Sterling." For the first time in hours, Marcus turned to look at her. Sofia Brown was nothing like the polished, ambitious women who usually orbited his world. She was probably in her late 20s, with kind brown eyes and an authenticity that seemed impossible in his circles. Tonight, she looked tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that came from working multiple jobs to make ends meet. "Do they?" he asked, his voice sharp with cynicism. "In my experience, Miss Brown, everyone wants something. The only question is whether they're honest about it." Sofia met his gaze without flinching. "Not everyone, sir." "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." Marcus Sterling hadn't always been a billionaire who despised the idea of children. There was a time when he'd been 8 years old himself, building elaborate castles out of cardboard boxes in his family's cramped Detroit apartment. His mother, Sarah, would pretend to be a princess trapped in the highest tower, while his father, Tom, played the brave knight coming to rescue her. Those memories felt like they belonged to someone else entirely. The accident changed everything. A drunk driver on I-94 had ended his parents' lives when Marcus was 16, leaving him alone with nothing but mounting bills and a future that seemed to crumble with each passing day. Foster care had been a nightmare of temporary families and broken promises. By 18, Marcus had learned the most important lesson of his life. The only person you could count on was yourself. Now, 20 years later, that lesson had built him an empire. Sterling Technologies occupied 3 floors of a gleaming tower in Midtown Manhattan, specializing in AI automation solutions that revolutionized how corporations operated. Marcus had started with a single laptop and an idea for predictive software. Today, his algorithms powered everything from smart cities to space exploration programs. His penthouse reflected his philosophy perfectly: everything automated, controlled, predictable. Voice commands adjusted lighting and temperature. His coffee machine knew his preferences down to the exact brewing time. Even his meals were delivered by a rotating schedule of high-end restaurants, eliminating the unpredictability of choice. It was a masterpiece of human engineering, designed to remove every possible variable that could disrupt his carefully ordered existence. The one variable he couldn't control was staff. In 2 years, Marcus had employed 17 different housekeepers. Each one had started with promise and ended with disappointment. They either tried to mother him, offering unsolicited advice about his lifestyle, or they gossiped about his personal life, or, worst of all, they suggested he needed children to complete his happiness. Mrs. Rodriguez had been the latest casualty. 6 months of exemplary service had ended the moment she'd said, "Mr. Sterling, a man like you should have a family to share all this with." Marcus had given her a generous severance package and an excellent reference. But she was gone by evening. The pattern was always the same. They'd see his wealth, his success, his solitary lifestyle, and decide he needed saving. What they couldn't understand was that Marcus had saved himself already. He'd built a life where disappointment was impossible because expectations were minimal, where loss was avoided because attachment was forbidden. When Mrs. Patterson from Whitmore Employment Agency called about Sofia Brown, Marcus almost declined the interview entirely. But his penthouse was becoming unlivable, and he had the Richardson Industries merger meetings scheduled for the following week. Desperation won over skepticism. Sofia arrived on a Tuesday morning that felt more like winter than spring. The city was grey and cold, matching Marcus's mood as he prepared for what he assumed would be another disappointing interview. She knocked precisely at 10, not a minute early, not a minute late. Opening the door, Marcus's first thought was that she looked tired. Not physically tired, but the deeper exhaustion that came from carrying too much responsibility for too long. She wore a simple black dress and carried a small leather portfolio, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun that emphasized the quiet dignity in her posture. "Mr. Sterling, I'm Sofia Brown from Whitmore Agency." Her handshake was firm but brief, professional. As Marcus led her through the penthouse, he waited for the usual reaction, the wide-eyed wonder, the barely concealed calculation, the attempts to impress him with enthusiasm. Instead, Sofia simply observed, her expression thoughtful but neutral. "Beautiful space," she said, looking out at the panoramic city view. "Very peaceful." Marcus had prepared his standard interview speech about discretion and boundaries, but something about Sofia's composure made him pause. She seemed genuinely unimpressed by his wealth, not disdainful, just unaffected. It was refreshing and unsettling simultaneously. "The position requires complete discretion," he began. "I work unconventional hours, often from home. I don't tolerate personal phone calls, unauthorized visitors, or interference with your routine," Sofia finished gently. "Mrs. Patterson explained your requirements thoroughly. You need someone who can maintain your home environment without disrupting your work or personal space." The way she said it, straightforward, without judgment, caught Marcus off guard. Most candidates either seemed intimidated by his demands or secretly dismissive of them. Sofia simply acknowledged them as legitimate professional requirements. "I have some specific questions," Marcus said. "Of course, Mrs. Patterson mentioned you have a child. Will childcare issues affect your reliability?" Sofia's expression didn't change. "My daughter Emma is 8. She stays with my mother during my work hours. The arrangement has been stable for 3 years, and my mother is in excellent health. Do you plan to have more children?" "No, sir. Emma and I are a complete family." Marcus found himself studying Sofia's face, looking for signs of the pity or concern he'd grown accustomed to seeing from others. Her brown eyes were warm but professional, revealing nothing beyond polite attention to his questions. They discussed logistics, cleaning procedures, technology systems, scheduling flexibility. Sofia answered each question with quiet competence, never volunteering unnecessary personal information. When Marcus mentioned his preference for minimal interaction during work hours, she simply nodded. "I understand completely, Mr. Sterling. My job is to maintain your home, not manage your life." As Marcus walked her to the elevator, Sofia turned back with a slight smile that transformed her tired features. "Mr. Sterling, I want to be clear about something. I'm not looking for anything beyond employment. I won't try to reorganize your life, offer advice about your choices, or suggest changes to your routine. I'm here to do excellent work and earn a steady paycheck for my daughter's future. Nothing more, nothing less." Standing in his doorway after she left, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years: relief. Finally, someone who understood boundaries. Someone who wouldn't try to fix what wasn't broken. Sofia Brown started work the following Monday, and for 3 weeks she'd been exactly what she'd promised: invisible efficiency personified. His penthouse had never run more smoothly, yet somehow it felt different. Warmer perhaps, more alive, which was precisely what worried him. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The emergency call came at 2:47 a.m. on a Thursday night in March. Marcus was still awake in his home office, reviewing quarterly reports for the Tokyo merger, when his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He almost ignored it. His personal line was reserved for genuine emergencies only, but something made him answer. Mr. Sterling. The voice was shaky, barely recognizable as Sofia's usual composed tone. I'm so sorry to call this late, but I don't know who else. Marcus straightened in his chair. In 3 weeks of employment, Sofia had never once crossed professional boundaries. What's wrong? It's my mother. Sofia's voice cracked. She had a stroke. They rushed her to Mount Sinai, and the doctors say it's serious. I know this is completely inappropriate, but Emma is with her, and the hospital won't let children stay overnight, and I don't have anyone else I can... Where are you now? Marcus interrupted, already reaching for his jacket. The hospital. But Mr. Sterling, I wasn't asking you to. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The line went silent for a moment. So you don't understand. I need to find somewhere for Emma to stay tonight. I can't leave my mother, but Emma can't stay here, and bring her here. The words left Marcus's mouth before his brain could process them. He stared at his reflection in the dark office window, wondering if he'd lost his mind. He didn't do children. He didn't do complications. He certainly didn't invite 8-year-old strangers into his carefully controlled environment. Mr. Sterling, I couldn't possibly... You called because you trust me enough to ask for help, Marcus said, surprising himself with the gentleness in his voice. Bring Emma here. She'll be safe. When Sofia arrived 45 minutes later, she looked like she'd aged a decade. Her usually neat appearance was disheveled, her eyes red from crying. Behind her stood a small girl with Sofia's warm brown eyes and dark curls that had escaped from what had probably been a neat ponytail hours earlier. Emma clutched a small backpack and a worn stuffed elephant, taking in Marcus's penthouse with the wide-eyed wonder her mother had never shown. Unlike Sofia's composed professionalism, Emma was pure 8-year-old curiosity mixed with exhaustion and fear. Emma. This is Mr. Sterling, Sofia said softly, kneeling beside her daughter. He's very kindly letting you stay here tonight while I'm with Grandma Rose. Emma looked up at Marcus with a directness that made him uncomfortable. He was used to adults who wanted something from him, who calculated angles and approaches. Children, he realized, simply saw what was in front of them. Is your house really in the clouds? Emma asked, pressing her face to the floor-to-ceiling windows. Marcus found himself almost smiling. We're very high up. You can see all of Central Park from here. Mama says you're important and busy, Emma continued, apparently unaware of social boundaries. But you don't look mean like important people on TV. Sofia's cheeks flushed. Emma, please. It's fine, Marcus said, and meant it. There was something refreshing about Emma's honesty, even if it terrified him. Are you hungry? Emma nodded solemnly. We were having dinner when the ambulance came. Grandma Rose was making her special mac and cheese, but then she fell down and couldn't talk right. The matter-of-fact way Emma described the trauma made Marcus's chest tighten. He'd forgotten how children processed tragedy, with acceptance and resilience that adults had trained out of themselves. Sofia hugged her daughter tightly. I have to go back to the hospital, sweetheart. Mr. Sterling is going to take very good care of you, and I'll see you first thing in the morning. Will Grandma Rose be okay? Emma asked. Sofia's composure finally cracked. I hope so, baby. I really hope so. After Sofia left, Marcus stood in his pristine living room with a child who represented everything he'd spent years avoiding. Emma was unpredictability incarnate, a small human with needs and emotions and questions he had no idea how to handle. Are you scared of kids? Emma asked, settling cross-legged on his white Italian leather sofa with her stuffed elephant. The question was so direct it caught Marcus off guard. Why would you think that? Because you look like my teacher did when she had to take care of the class hamster. Like you're not sure what I'm gonna do next. Marcus realized he was standing awkwardly by the kitchen island, maintaining distance as if Emma might explode without warning. I don't have much experience with children. That's okay, Emma said matter-of-factly. I don't have much experience with billionaires. Mama told me you're really rich, but you don't have gold toilets or anything fancy like that. Gold toilets would be impractical, Marcus said seriously. Emma giggled, a sound that seemed to fill spaces in his penthouse he hadn't known were empty. Do you have any games? Marcus looked around his technology-filled home. Everything was designed for adult productivity and entertainment. I have a very advanced entertainment system. We could watch something. Do you have any books? The question surprised him. Marcus had an extensive library in his study, but they were all business texts, biographies of successful entrepreneurs, and technical manuals. Not children's books, Emma shrugged. That's okay. I can read grown-up books if they're not too boring. Grandma Rose taught me to read when I was 4. Marcus found himself genuinely curious. What do you like to read? Stories about people who do brave things, Emma said, settling more comfortably on the sofa. And books about animals. And sometimes I read Mama's nursing textbooks, but those have really gross pictures. Your mother is studying nursing. Emma nodded. At night school. She wants to be a nurse like Grandma Rose was, before she retired. She says helping people feel better is the most important job in the world. Marcus felt something shift in his understanding of Sofia. 3 weeks of professional interaction, and he'd never known she was pursuing her own dreams while working for him. The realization made him uncomfortable, not because Sofia had hidden it, but because he'd never thought to ask. Are you hungry? He asked Emma, a little. But I'm not supposed to be picky. Mama says when people are kind enough to help us, we should be grateful for whatever they offer. The careful politeness in Emma's voice reminded Marcus painfully of himself at her age, already learning to minimize his needs to avoid being a burden. What would you like to eat? Emma considered this seriously. What do you have? Marcus realized he had no idea what children ate. His automated meal service provided sophisticated adult cuisine. His refrigerator contained expensive cheeses, imported waters, and leftover sashimi from his dinner meeting. I could order something, he said. What do you usually have for dinner? Grandma Rose makes really good grilled cheese, Emma said wistfully. And chicken nuggets sometimes. And we always have vegetables, because Mama says they're important for growing strong. Marcus found himself pulling out his phone to search for child-friendly restaurants that delivered. It was 4 a.m., which complicated things considerably. As he scrolled through options, Emma yawned. Are you tired? He asked. A little. But I don't want to sleep until Mama comes back. Marcus understood that fear more than Emma could know. She'll be back in the morning. I promise. Emma studied his face with those serious brown eyes. Do you always keep your promises? The question hit harder than it should have. Marcus had built his business reputation on reliability, but personal promises were different territory entirely. Yes, he said finally. I do. Okay then. Emma yawned again. But I still don't want to sleep yet. Can we stay up and talk? I want to know about being a billionaire. Marcus almost smiled. What do you want to know? Do you ever get lonely in this big house by yourself? The question was so innocently perceptive that Marcus felt his carefully constructed walls wobble. He looked around his pristine penthouse, all sharp edges and perfect surfaces, and realized he was seeing it through Emma's eyes for the first time. Sometimes, he admitted. Emma nodded sagely. Mama gets lonely sometimes too, especially at night when she thinks I'm sleeping. But she tries to hide it because she doesn't want me to worry. In that moment, Marcus began to understand that his perfectly controlled world was about to change in ways he couldn't predict or prevent. And for the first time in 20 years, the thought didn't terrify him quite as much as it should have. Marcus woke up to the sound of soft giggling coming from his kitchen. For a moment he was disoriented. His penthouse was never filled with laughter. Then the events of the previous night crashed back. Sofia's desperate call, Emma's wide-eyed arrival, and the strange conversation that had lasted until nearly dawn. He'd finally convinced Emma to sleep in his guest room around 5 a.m. After she'd asked him approximately 100 questions about everything from his childhood to why He didn't have any pets. Now sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and something smelled suspiciously like pancakes. Marcus pulled on a robe and padded toward the kitchen, where he discovered Emma standing on a chair at his marble island, carefully flipping what appeared to be actual pancakes on a griddle he didn't remember owning. She was still wearing her clothes from yesterday, but she'd managed to find one of his aprons, which hung nearly to her ankles. "Good morning," Emma announced cheerfully. "I hope you don't mind that I borrowed your kitchen. Mama always says the best way to thank someone for kindness is to do something nice for them." Marcus stared at the scene before him. His pristine, minimalist kitchen had been transformed into something resembling actual cooking chaos. Flour dusted the countertop, mixing bowls sat in the sink, and somehow Emma had located ingredients he hadn't known he possessed. "Where did you find pancake mix?" he asked. "I didn't use mix," Emma said proudly. "Grandma Rose taught me to make them from scratch. You had flour and eggs and milk, so I just had to get creative with the other stuff. I hope you like them a little different. I had to use vanilla coffee creamer instead of regular vanilla." The domestic scene was so foreign to Marcus's usual morning routine that he felt like an intruder in his own home. His mornings typically consisted of protein smoothies, market reports, and silence. Now his kitchen smelled like vanilla and butter, and a child was serving him breakfast. "Emma, you didn't have to." "I wanted to," Emma interrupted, carefully sliding 2 golden pancakes onto a plate. "Besides, I was worried about Grandma Rose, and cooking helps me think about other things." Marcus accepted the plate, noting how Emma had arranged the pancakes with a small pat of butter and even found some berries from his refrigerator to create a smiley face. It was impossibly thoughtful for someone who'd been through trauma less than 12 hours ago. "These look incredible," Marcus said, and meant it. Emma beamed. "Try them!" The first bite was revelation. The pancakes were light, fluffy, and carried that subtle vanilla flavor from his expensive coffee creamer. But more than that, they tasted like care, like someone had put thought and effort into making something special just for him. "Emma, these are amazing," Marcus said, surprised by his own sincerity. "Really? Mama always says I'm getting better, but sometimes I think she's just being nice because she's my mom." "I'm not your mom," Marcus pointed out. "And I'm telling you, these are the best pancakes I've ever had." Emma's smile could have powered half of Manhattan. "Wait until you try my grilled cheese. Grandma Rose says I have magic hands for comfort food." As they ate breakfast together, Emma chattering about her school friends, while Marcus found himself actually listening, his phone rang. Sofia's name appeared on the screen, and Marcus felt his stomach tighten with worry. "Good morning," he answered. "How is your mother?" "She's stable." Sofia's voice was exhausted but relieved. "The doctors say she's going to need extensive physical therapy, and she can't live alone anymore, but she's going to recover." "Thank God!" Marcus felt relief wash over him, though he wasn't entirely sure why. "That's wonderful news. Mr. Sterling, I cannot thank you enough for last night. I know having Emma there was completely outside any reasonable expectation, and—" "Sofia," Marcus interrupted gently, "how are you holding up?" There was a pause. "I'm tired, scared. The doctors want to keep Mom for at least a week, and after that, she'll need to be somewhere with assistance. I have no idea how I'm going to manage everything." Emma, who'd been listening intently, gestured for the phone. Marcus hesitated, then handed it over. "Mama, is Grandma Rose going to be okay?" Emma's voice was small and worried. Marcus couldn't hear Sofia's response, but he watched Emma's face cycle through relief, concern, and determination. "Don't worry about me. Mama, Mr. Sterling makes really good coffee, and I made him pancakes, and we had a great talk. You just take care of Grandma Rose." When Emma handed the phone back, Sofia sounded near tears. "Mr. Sterling, I need to ask you something impossible. I know it's completely inappropriate, but I don't have anyone else. My mother can't watch Emma anymore, and I can't afford to miss work while dealing with all this. Would it be possible? Could Emma possibly stay with you for just a few more days? Just until I can figure out alternative arrangements?" Marcus looked at Emma, who was pretending not to listen, while very obviously hanging on every word. Her small hands were clasped tightly in her lap, and he could see the worry she was trying to hide. "Of course," Marcus heard himself say. "I'll pay you, of course. Babysitting rates, whatever's fair." "Sophia, stop." Marcus's voice was firm. "You don't pay someone for helping during a family crisis. Emma can stay as long as needed." "I don't understand why you're being so kind," Sophia whispered. Marcus didn't understand it either. 3 days ago, the idea of a child staying in his penthouse would have been unthinkable. Now, looking at Emma's hopeful face, he couldn't imagine saying no. "We'll figure it out," he said simply. After he hung up, Emma threw her arms around his waist in an impulsive hug that nearly knocked him over. "Thank you, thank you, thank you. I promise I'll be good, and I won't touch anything I'm not supposed to, and I'll be very quiet when you're working." Marcus awkwardly patted her back, overwhelmed by the fierce gratitude of her small embrace. "Emma, you don't have to be invisible. This is your home too, for now." The words surprised him as much as they seemed to surprise her. "Really? I can ask questions and stuff?" "Within reason," Marcus said, then found himself smiling. "Though I suspect you'll ask them whether I give permission or not." Emma giggled. "Mama says I'm naturally curious." "What does that mean?" "It means you want to understand everything around you." "That's not a bad thing, even if I ask annoying questions." Marcus realized he was enjoying their conversation more than most business meetings he'd attended in the past year. "Try me. Why don't you have a family? Someone as nice as you should have people who love him." The question hit like a physical blow, direct and innocent and devastating. Marcus sat down heavily on one of his bar stools, wondering how an 8-year-old had managed to identify his deepest fear so casually. "It's complicated," he said finally. Emma considered this with the seriousness she seemed to apply to everything. "Mama says grown-ups always think things are complicated, when really they're just scared. Your mother is very wise. Are you scared?" Marcus looked into Emma's honest brown eyes and realized he was tired of deflecting. "Yes, I think I am." Emma nodded, as if this made perfect sense. "That's okay. Mama's scared too, especially since Daddy went to heaven. But she says being scared doesn't mean you can't do brave things anyway." "What was your father like?" Marcus asked gently. Emma's face lit up. "He was the best dad ever. He used to build me blanket forts and read me stories with funny voices. He died when I was 5, but I still remember everything about him." The casual way Emma discussed such profound loss reminded Marcus that children possessed a resilience adults often forgot. "I'm sorry you lost him. Me too. But Mama says he's still with us in all the love he gave us. And now we have Grandma Rose and each other and—" Emma paused thoughtfully. "And maybe now we have you too." The tentative hope in her voice made Marcus's chest tight. He was stepping into territory he'd sworn never to enter, becoming important to people who needed him, and taking responsibility for hearts that could break. "Maybe we do," he said softly. Emma's smile was radiant. "Good, because I think you need us too." Marcus realized she was absolutely right, and for the first time in 20 years, that didn't scare him quite as much as it should have. The first real test came on Monday morning, when Marcus had his most important board meeting of the year. The Richardson Industries merger, worth $2.3 billion, hung in the balance, and 3 executives had flown in from London specifically for this presentation. Marcus had spent weeks preparing, knowing that one misstep could cost Sterling Technologies its biggest acquisition ever. He woke at 5:30 a.m. to find Emma already awake in the guest room, sitting by the window with her stuffed elephant, watching the sunrise paint Manhattan in shades of gold and pink. "You're up early," Marcus said softly, not wanting to startle her. Emma turned with a smile that seemed too bright for someone who'd been dealing with her grandmother's hospitalization for 4 days. "I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Grandma Rose, trying to do her physical therapy today." Marcus sat on the edge of the bed. Over the weekend, he'd learned to recognize Emma's patterns, the way she put on a brave face when she was actually terrified, how she channeled anxiety into taking care of others. "Are you worried about her?" "A little. But mostly I'm excited because Mama said if Grandma Rose does well this week, maybe I can visit her soon." Emma hugged her elephant tighter. I miss her stories. What kind of stories does she tell? Real ones about when she was a nurse in the army, and about Grandpa Joe before he died, and about Mama when she was little and got into trouble for trying to give medical treatment to her dolls. Marcus found himself smiling despite his pre-meeting nerves. Your mother tried to be a nurse even as a child. Mama says she always wanted to help people feel better. That's why she's studying so hard now, even though it's really difficult with work and taking care of me. The reminder of Sofia's night school program made Marcus uncomfortable. She'd been missing classes to stay at the hospital with her mother, and he knew she couldn't afford to fall behind. Another problem he had no idea how to solve. Emma, I have a very important meeting today that might last several hours. Will you be okay here by yourself? Emma nodded seriously. I have my books and I can practice my math homework. I'm very good at being quiet. You don't have to be quiet. This is a big space, and my office has good soundproofing. Just maybe avoid using the kitchen appliances without me here. Can I order lunch if I get hungry? I promise I'll only get something healthy. Marcus paused. He'd never considered whether an 8-year-old could handle food delivery logistics. Do you know how to do that? Mama taught me in case of emergencies. I know her credit card number and everything. The casual competence in Emma's voice reminded Marcus again of how much responsibility she already carried. Use my account instead. The information is in the kitchen drawer, labeled household. As Marcus prepared for his meeting, adjusting his tie and reviewing his presentation notes one final time, Emma appeared in his bedroom doorway. You look nervous, she observed. It's a big meeting. Very important for my company. Emma studied his face with that unsettling directness that seemed to see right through his professional armor. Are you worried they won't like you? The question was so unexpectedly perceptive that Marcus stopped fidgeting with his cufflinks. Something like that. Well, I like you, Emma said matter-of-factly. And I think you're really smart, so probably they will too. But if they don't, that says more about them than about you. Marcus stared at this 8-year-old who had just given him better pre-meeting advice than his executive coach ever had. Where did you learn to say things like that? Mama tells me that whenever I'm scared about school presentations or making new friends, she says people who don't appreciate good things probably aren't worth worrying about anyway. Your mother is right. Emma grinned. I'll tell her you said so. She'll be so proud that a billionaire thinks she's smart. The meeting started well. Marcus's presentation was flawless, the financial projections were solid, and the Richardson executives seemed genuinely impressed with Sterling Technologies' growth trajectory. For 90 minutes, Marcus was in his element, confident, articulate, completely in control. Then Emma screamed. The sound cut through the supposedly soundproof walls of his office like a knife. Marcus froze mid-sentence, his blood turning to ice. In the video conference room, 12 executives stared at him in confusion. I'm terribly sorry, Marcus said, fighting to keep his voice steady. Please excuse me for just one moment. He rushed out of the meeting, his heart pounding as he called Emma's name. He found her in the kitchen, standing in a puddle of water, with tears streaming down her face. The dishwasher door was open, and soap suds were everywhere. I'm sorry, Emma sobbed. I was just trying to clean up from breakfast, and I pushed the wrong button, and now there's water everywhere, and I ruined your beautiful kitchen. Marcus felt a wave of relief so intense it made him dizzy. She wasn't hurt. She was just upset about a minor flood that his cleaning service could fix in minutes. Emma, it's okay, he said, kneeling beside her in the soapy water. It's just water. You're not hurt, right? Emma shook her head, hiccuping through her tears. But your meeting. I heard voices from your office and I messed everything up. Marcus looked around at the chaos. Soap suds coating his marble counters, water spreading across his hardwood floors, his normally pristine kitchen looking like a disaster zone. 6 months ago, this scene would have sent him into a controlled panic about property damage and disrupted schedules. Now, all he could focus on was Emma's distress. The meeting can wait, Marcus said, pulling her into a hug that got his expensive suit soaked with dish soap. People are more important than business deals. Emma looked up at him with wonder. Really? But it's worth billions of dollars. And you're worth more than all the money in the world. The words came out before Marcus could stop them. And the truth of what he just said hit him like a physical blow. Somewhere over the past 4 days, this little girl had become more important to him than his largest business acquisition. I have to go finish the meeting, Marcus said gently. But first, let's get you cleaned up and turn off this dishwasher. When Marcus returned to his office 15 minutes later, wearing a fresh shirt and trying to project calm competence, the Richardson executives were clearly curious about the interruption. Is everything all right? Asked Victoria Richardson, the CEO. Yes. Just a small household matter, Marcus replied smoothly, settling back into his presentation. But as he continued discussing profit margins and market projections, part of his attention remained focused on the sounds from the rest of his penthouse. Emma was being deliberately quiet, probably feeling guilty about the disruption, the knowledge that she was trying to minimize herself to avoid. Causing him more problems made his chest tight. The meeting concluded. Successfully, Richardson Industries agreed to the merger terms. But Marcus felt distracted throughout the final negotiations. When the executives finally left, he found Emma curled up in the guest room with a book, still wearing the same clothes from her dishwasher adventure. How did it go? She asked tentatively. We got the deal, Marcus said, sitting on the edge of the bed. Emma's face lit up. That's wonderful. You must be so happy. Marcus realized he should be elated. The Richardson merger was the culmination of months of work, the biggest success of his career. Instead, he felt oddly hollow. Emma, I need to ask you something. Would you be upset if I had less time for work meetings and more time for other things? Emma tilted her head, considering. Like what kind of other things? Like teaching you to use the dishwasher properly, or visiting your grandmother in the hospital, or making sure your mother doesn't fall behind in her nursing classes. You would do that. The hope in Emma's voice made Marcus's decision easy. I think I'd like to try. Emma threw her arms around him in one of her fierce hugs. Does this mean you're going to be part of our family for real? Marcus held her tight, overwhelmed by how much his life had changed in less than a week. I think that's exactly what it means. For the first time in 20 years, Marcus Sterling had found something more important than business success. The question now was whether he was brave enough to choose it. The breakthrough came unexpectedly on a rainy Wednesday afternoon, exactly 1 week after Emma had first entered Marcus's life. He was working in his study when he heard muffled crying from the guest room. Not the dramatic sobs of the dishwasher incident, but the quiet, heartbroken sounds of someone trying not to be heard. Marcus found Emma sitting on the floor of her room, surrounded by scattered homework papers, her math book open to a page covered in eraser marks and frustrated scribbles. Tears streamed down her face as she stared at problems that seemed to mock her efforts. What's wrong? Marcus asked, settling beside her on the carpet. I'm stupid, Emma whispered, not looking up from her worksheet. I can't do these math problems, and tomorrow's the test, and I'm going to fail and disappoint everyone. Marcus glanced at the paper. 4th grade multiplication and division word problems. Emma had gotten several wrong, her work showing she understood the basic concepts but struggled with the multi-step reasoning. You're not stupid, Marcus said firmly. These are actually quite challenging problems. May I look at your work? Emma nodded miserably, handing him the crumpled worksheet. Marcus studied her attempts, recognizing a pattern in her mistakes. She was rushing, making careless errors because she was anxious rather than because she didn't understand. Emma, you're getting confused because you're trying to solve everything at once. Let me show you something. Marcus grabbed a blank piece of paper. What if we broke each problem into smaller pieces? He wrote out the first word problem. Sarah has 24 stickers. She wants to share them equally among her 6 friends. How many stickers will each friend receive? See how this problem is really asking us to do 2 things, Marcus said. First is telling us Sarah has 24 stickers. Second, it's asking us to divide them by 6. What if we just focus on those 2 pieces? Emma wiped her eyes, leaning closer to study his approach. So 24 divided by 6? Exactly. And what's 24 divided by 6? Emma worked it out slowly. 4? Perfect. Each friend gets 4 stickers. Marcus smiled at her. See? You knew how to do it. You just needed to slow down and take it step by step. They worked through 3 more problems together, Marcus patiently guiding Emma through his method of breaking complex questions into manageable parts. He watched her confidence return as she began to see the patterns, her natural intelligence emerging once the anxiety subsided. This is how I solve business problems too, Marcus told her. When Sterling Technologies faces a complicated challenge, I break it down into smaller questions I can answer one at a time. Emma looked up at him with curiosity. Really? Like what? Marcus considered how to explain corporate strategy to an 8-year-old. Well, when we wanted to merge with Richardson Industries, I couldn't just ask, should we do this deal? That's too big and scary. Instead, I broke it into smaller questions. Do they have good technology? Do their values match ours? Will this help both companies grow? Would our employees be happy? And when you answered all the little questions, you knew what to do about the big one. Exactly. Marcus felt a surge of pride at Emma's quick understanding. You have a very logical mind, Emma. That's a gift, Emma beamed. Mama always says I think too much, but she means it in a good way. She's right. Thinking deeply is a superpower, not a problem. They continued working through the math homework, but Marcus found himself learning as much as teaching. Emma's questions revealed a curiosity and analytical mind that reminded him of his younger self, the kid, who taught himself programming because he wanted to understand how computers thought. Mr. Marcus, Emma said as they finished the last problem. Can I ask you something kind of personal? Marcus had learned that Emma's personal questions were usually the most insightful ones. Go ahead, why don't you have kids of your own? You're really good at explaining things, and you're patient, and you make people feel smart instead of stupid. The question hit Marcus in a tender spot he'd forgotten existed. I always thought children needed more than I could give them, Emma frowned. Like what? Like knowing how to be a good parent, having a family to show them what love looks like, being the kind of person they could count on no matter what. Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing this with her characteristic seriousness. But you already do all that stuff. What do you mean? Well, you make me feel safe when I'm scared about Grandma Rose. You help me when I'm stuck on problems. You hug me when I'm sad. And you stayed home from work when I needed you, even though it was really important. Emma counted these items on her fingers. That sounds like parent stuff to me. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest, not painfully, but like a door he'd kept locked for 20 years, suddenly swinging wide. Emma, and Mama always says the most important thing about being a parent is showing up when someone needs you. You showed up for me and Mama when we needed help, even though we're not really your family. The simple truth of Emma's observation left Marcus speechless. She was right. Over the past week, he'd instinctively done all the things he'd convinced himself he was incapable of. Protecting, nurturing, prioritizing someone else's needs above his own. Maybe, Emma continued thoughtfully. You don't need to know how to be a perfect parent before you start. Maybe you just learn by doing it, like I learned these math problems. Marcus looked at this remarkable child who had somehow become the teacher in their relationship. When did you become so wise? Emma giggled. I think it happened when I met you. Mama says being around good people makes us better too. That evening, Marcus called Sofia at the hospital. She sounded exhausted but hopeful. Her mother was making progress in physical therapy and might be able to move to a rehabilitation facility soon. How's Emma handling everything? Sofia asked. I know this situation is far beyond what anyone should expect from an employer. Sofia, Marcus interrupted gently, I need to tell you something. This stopped being about employment days ago. There was silence on the other end of the line. I don't understand, Sofia said finally. Marcus took a deep breath, thinking about Emma's lesson in breaking big problems into smaller, manageable questions. I care about Emma. I care about you. I want to help not because I have to, but because I want to be part of your lives. Marcus, Sofia's voice was soft with surprise. You don't know what you're saying. I think I do. For the first time in 20 years, I think I finally know exactly what I'm saying. Marcus could hear Sofia crying softly. I'm scared, she whispered. I'm scared too, Marcus admitted. But Emma taught me something today. She said maybe you don't need to know how to be perfect before you start trying. Maybe you learn by doing, she said that. She's remarkable, Sofia. You've raised an incredible daughter. We've had a lot of practice taking care of each other. Marcus felt that familiar tightness in his chest, not anxiety this time, but something warmer and more hopeful. Maybe it's time you let someone take care of you both. When Marcus hung up the phone, Emma appeared in his study doorway in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed elephant. Was that Mama? Yes, she says your grandmother is getting stronger every day. Emma smiled. Good. Did you tell her about the math homework? I told her you're brilliant. Emma padded over to his chair and leaned against his arm. Mr. Marcus, I know I'm supposed to go back to my old life when Grandma Rose gets better, but what if I don't want to? Marcus pulled her into his lap, marveling at how natural the gesture had become. What would you want instead? I want us to be a real family. You and me and Mama, is that crazy? Marcus thought about his empty penthouse before Emma arrived, about the silence that used to press against him like a weight, about the business achievements that had never filled the hollowness inside him. No, sweetheart, he said, kissing the top of her head. I don't think that's crazy at all. For the first time in his adult life, Marcus Sterling knew exactly what he wanted, and it had nothing to do with profit margins or market dominance. It had everything to do with the little girl in his arms and the woman who had raised her to see the best in everyone, even in a man who had forgotten how to see it in himself. The crisis began with a photograph on the front page of the New York Financial Tribune. Marcus discovered it at 6 a.m. on Friday morning while checking his daily news briefings. The headline read, Billionaire's Secret Family. Sterling Technologies CEO spotted with mystery woman and child. The photo was grainy but unmistakable. Marcus entering Mount Sinai Hospital 2 nights earlier with Sofia and Emma. He'd been visiting Sofia's mother for the first time, bringing flowers and a card Emma had made. What should have been a private family moment was now splashed across the business section with speculation about hidden relationships and secret children. Marcus's phone started ringing immediately. His publicist, his board members, his investors, everyone wanted explanations he wasn't prepared to give. By 7 a.m., his assistant Linda had fielded 37 calls, and the story was trending on social media. Sir, we need to discuss damage control, Linda said when she arrived at his penthouse. She paused, taking in the sight of Emma at the kitchen island, methodically working through a stack of pancakes while reading a chapter book. Is this? Emma, this is Linda, my assistant. Linda, this is Emma Brown. Emma looked up with her usual directness. Are you here about the newspaper? Because that picture made Mr. Marcus look grumpy, but he's actually very nice. Linda stared at Marcus in bewilderment. In 5 years of working for him, she'd never seen him interact with a child, let alone have one living in his home. We need to talk privately, Linda said urgently. Marcus looked at Emma, who was pretending to read while obviously listening to every word. Emma, would you mind getting dressed? We might need to go out later. Emma nodded and slipped away, but Marcus could see the worry in her eyes. She'd learned to read adult tensions with the survival skills of a child who'd experienced loss. Marcus, what the hell is going on? Linda demanded once they were alone in his study. The board is in crisis mode. Janet Richardson called personally. She's concerned about the merger if you're dealing with paternity suits or secret family scandals. It's not a scandal, Marcus said quietly. Then what is it? Because from where I'm sitting, you've gone completely off script. The Marcus Sterling I know doesn't do domestic complications or surprise children. Linda's words stung because they were true. For 5 years, She'd managed his image as the focused, unattached business genius who lived for profit margins and market dominance. That version of Marcus Sterling would have viewed this situation as a catastrophic liability. "Things change," Marcus said. "Not this much, not this fast." "Marcus, be practical. You're 38 years old, worth $12 billion, and you've never shown the slightest interest in children or relationships. Now suddenly you're playing house with your housekeeper and her daughter. The media is going to crucify you." Before Marcus could respond, Emma appeared in the doorway, fully dressed but carrying her stuffed elephant. Her face was carefully composed, but Marcus could see she was fighting tears. "I heard the lady talking," Emma said quietly. "She thinks I'm bad for your business," Linda flushed. "Emma, I didn't mean—" "It's okay," Emma interrupted with devastating politeness. "I know I don't belong here. I'll call Mama and tell her to come get me." Marcus felt something shatter inside his chest. "Emma, no. You do belong here." "But the lady said—" "The lady is wrong," Marcus said firmly, moving to kneel beside Emma. "You belong wherever you feel loved and safe. And this is your home now." Emma searched his face. "Even if it causes problems for your company." Marcus thought about the Richardson merger, about the board meetings and damage control strategies and public relations campaigns. Then he looked at Emma's worried brown eyes and realized none of it mattered compared to making sure she felt secure. "Even then," he said. Linda cleared her throat. "Marcus, we need a strategy. The story is escalating. TMZ is running with speculation about secret marriages and hidden affairs. Your stock price is already down 3%. Then we tell the truth," Marcus said, standing up. "Which is what exactly?" Marcus looked at Emma, then back at Linda. "That I've found my family." The phone rang again. This time it was Sofia calling from the hospital. Marcus could hear the panic in her voice before she even spoke. "Marcus, I just saw the news. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I'll come get Emma right now and we'll disappear. I'll find another job. We won't cause you any more trouble." "Sofia, stop." Marcus moved to the window, looking out at the city that had always felt like his kingdom but now seemed hostile and invasive. "Where would you go?" "I don't know. Maybe back to Georgia, where my mother's from. I have some family there." The thought of Sofia and Emma leaving, of returning to his empty penthouse and his carefully controlled life, made Marcus feel physically ill. "What about your nursing program?" "I can't afford to continue anyway, not with Mom's medical bills and rehabilitation costs." Sofia's voice cracked. "Marcus, I need you to understand. I never wanted anything from you except a job. I never meant to complicate your life." "You didn't complicate it," Marcus said softly. "You saved it." There was silence on the other end. "But the newspaper is wrong about everything that matters," Marcus interrupted. "Sofia, I need you to listen to me. I don't care about the headlines or the stock price or what the board thinks. I care about you and Emma. You don't understand what this could cost you, and you don't understand what losing you would cost me." Marcus heard Sofia crying quietly. "This is impossible. Your world and ours, they don't mix. Look what happened with just one photograph. Then maybe it's time to change my world." Before Sofia could respond, Marcus's other line rang. Linda answered it, her face growing pale as she listened. "Marcus," she said urgently. "That was Janet Richardson. The board is calling an emergency meeting. They want you to issue a statement distancing yourself from any personal complications that might affect the merger." Emma tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "What does that mean?" Marcus looked down at her worried face, then at Linda's expectant expression, then at his phone, where Sofia waited for his response. 3 different paths stretched before him. His old life of profitable isolation, a compromise that might satisfy everyone but save nothing, or a leap into unknown territory that could cost him everything he'd built. "Mr. Marcus," Emma whispered, "are you going to choose your business or us?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Emma had asked it with the directness that children possessed. But Marcus realized it was the same question every adult in his life was asking in different ways. Marcus thought about the scared 16-year-old he'd been after his parents died, determined never to depend on anyone again. He thought about 20 years of building walls so high that no one could climb them. He thought about the empty penthouse and the silence that used to feel like safety but now felt like death. Then he looked at Emma's trusting face and made his choice. "Linda," he said quietly, "cancel the emergency meeting. Draft a press release instead." "Saying what?" Marcus picked up Emma, holding her close as he spoke to Sofia on the phone. "Sofia, don't go anywhere. Don't run. I'm about to do something that's either very brave or very stupid. What are you going to do?" Marcus looked out at the city he'd conquered through ruthless ambition and careful control. "I'm going to bet everything on love." The crisis wasn't just about media attention or business complications. It was about whether Marcus Sterling had the courage to choose the family he'd found over the empire he'd built. And for the first time in his life, the answer was crystal clear. Marcus Sterling had given exactly 3 press conferences in his entire career, and never about his personal life. But at 2 p.m. on Friday afternoon, he stood before a room packed with reporters, cameras, and curious onlookers, with Emma beside. Him in her best dress and Sofia on his other side, looking nervous but determined. The press release had been simple. Sterling Technologies CEO to address recent media speculation regarding personal life. What Marcus was about to say would either destroy everything he'd built or transform it into something better than he'd ever imagined. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to do. "I called this conference to address the recent speculation about my personal life and to introduce you to the 2 most important people in my world." The room erupted with camera flashes and shouted questions. Marcus held up his hand for silence. 3 weeks ago, Sofia Brown came to work as my housekeeper. She was professional, competent, and asked for nothing beyond fair employment. I thought, that was exactly what I wanted, someone who would maintain my home without disturbing my carefully ordered life. Marcus glanced down at Emma, who squeezed his hand encouragingly. Then Sofia's mother had a stroke, and Emma needed somewhere safe to stay. I agreed to help, thinking it would be temporary. What I didn't expect was that these 2 extraordinary people would teach me something I'd forgotten, that success without love is just expensive loneliness. A reporter from the Financial Tribune raised her hand. "Mr. Sterling, are you saying this is a romantic relationship that affects your business judgment?" "I'm saying this is a family," Marcus replied firmly. "And yes, it absolutely affects my judgment. It's made it better. Emma has taught me to solve problems by breaking them into manageable pieces. Sofia has shown me that true strength comes from caring for others, not just yourself. They've made me a better leader, a better person, and a better man." Another reporter jumped in. "What about the Richardson merger? Sources say the deal is in jeopardy because of these distractions." Marcus felt Emma's small hand tighten in his. He looked down at her, remembering their conversation about whether he would choose business or family. "The Richardson merger will proceed as planned," Marcus said, "but I want to be clear about something. If any business partner or investor has a problem with me having a family, then we probably weren't good partners to begin with." Sterling Technologies has always been about innovation and forward thinking. A CEO who prioritizes human connections and emotional intelligence isn't a liability, it's an asset. Sofia stepped closer to the microphone. Marcus had been surprised when she'd asked to speak, but he'd learned to trust her judgment completely. "I want to address something," Sofia said, her voice gaining strength. "There's been speculation about my motives, suggestions that I'm a gold digger or someone looking for financial gain. The truth is, I've been supporting my daughter and pursuing my nursing degree for years without anyone's help. I didn't need Marcus's money, but Emma and I needed his love, and he needed ours." Emma tugged on Marcus's jacket. He leaned down as she whispered something in his ear, then straightened with a smile. "Emma has something she'd like to say." Room fell silent as the 8-year-old stepped up to the microphone, her stuffed elephant tucked under one arm. "My name is Emma Brown, and Mr. Marcus is the best dad I never knew I needed," she said with the devastating honesty that only children possessed. "He helped me with my math homework, he makes really good coffee, and when I was scared about my grandma being sick, he told me that love doesn't run out even when people go to heaven." Emma paused, looking directly into the cameras. "Grown-ups always think having money makes you happy, but Mr. Marcus had lots of money, and he was lonely. Now he has us, and we have him, and that's what actually matters." The room was completely quiet. Several reporters were visibly moved by Emma's simple eloquence. Marcus stepped back to the microphone. "I have an announcement to make about Sterling Technologies' future direction. We're launching a new initiative, the Sterling Foundation for Family Support. We'll be providing emergency financial assistance, childcare resources, and educational opportunities for single parents pursuing career advancement." He looked at Sofia. "The foundation will be directed by Sofia Brown once she completes her nursing degree, which Sterling Technologies will be funding through our new employee family education program." The questions came rapidly after that. Marcus answered them all with a confidence he'd never felt before. When a reporter asked if he was worried about his image as a ruthless businessman, Marcus laughed. "The most ruthless thing I ever did was build walls so high that love couldn't get in. The smartest business decision I ever made was tearing them down." As the press conference concluded, Marcus felt lighter than he had in 20 years. The immediate response was mixed. Some investors expressed concern. Others praised his transparency and family values. The stock price fluctuated wildly before settling exactly where it had started. That evening, Marcus found himself in his kitchen, no longer sterile and untouched, but warm and alive with the sounds of family dinner. Sofia was teaching Emma how to make her grandmother's famous cornbread recipe, and the air was filled with laughter and the comfortable chaos of people who belonged together. "Are you sure about all this?" Sofia asked quietly as they watched Emma carefully measure flour. "You've upended your entire life." Marcus pulled Sofia close, marveling at how natural the gesture had become. "My entire life was empty before you two filled it. I've never been more sure of anything." Emma looked up from her mixing bowl, flour dusting her nose. "Mr. Marcus? Dad, can I ask you something?" The word "dad" hit Marcus like a lightning bolt of pure joy. "Anything, sweetheart. When you were little and scared, did you ever think someone like you would take care of someone like me?" Marcus considered the question seriously. "No, Emma. When I was scared and alone, I never imagined I could be the kind of person someone would count on." "But you are," Emma said simply. "So maybe scared kids grow up to be the best dads because they remember what it feels like to need someone." Sofia wiped tears from her eyes. "Where do you get these ideas?" Emma grinned. "From having the smartest dad and the best mom in the whole world." 6 months later, Marcus Sterling stood in a different kind of boardroom, the family court, where he was officially adopting Emma Brown. Sofia had kept her maiden name, but she wore the engagement ring Marcus had given her the night he'd realized that proposing wasn't about finding someone to complete him, but about choosing to build a life with someone who made him want to be better. The judge smiled as she handed Marcus the adoption papers. "Mr. Sterling, do you promise to love, protect, and support Emma as your daughter in good times and challenges for as long as you both shall live?" Marcus looked at Emma, who was practically vibrating with excitement in her best dress, and at Sofia, whose tears of joy matched his own. "I promise," he said, "and I promise to keep learning how to be the father she deserves." Emma threw her arms around him. "You already are, Dad. You already are." As they left the courthouse as an official family, Marcus realized that his greatest acquisition wasn't Sterling Technologies or the Richardson merger or any of the billions in his portfolio. It was the trust of a little girl who had taught him that the most successful people weren't those who had everything. They were those who shared everything they had. Marcus Sterling had spent 20 years building an empire, but it took just 3 weeks with Sofia and Emma Brown to discover that love was the only currency that truly mattered. And unlike his business ventures, this investment would pay dividends for the rest of his life. The scared 16-year-old who had sworn never to need anyone again had finally learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest risk is not opening your heart, but keeping it closed. And sometimes the most successful thing you can do is admit you can't do it alone. In the end, Marcus Sterling didn't just gain a family, he remembered how to be human. And that transformation was worth more than all the money in the world. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.